Arman never understood why people made such a big deal about birthdays. Every year, as his date approached, the world around him seemed to grow louder. Group chats would suddenly become active. Friends would start asking, "Plan Kaya Hai?" Social media would begin reminding everyone that his special day was coming. Balloons, cakes, glittering countdown stories, it all felt like a performance rehearsed annually. But Arman, he would wake up the same way he did every other day. No dramatic midnight waiting, no anxious checking of notifications, no expectation sitting quietly in his chest, just tea, silence, sunrise to others. This felt strange, almost concerning. Some assumed he was pretending not to care. Others thought he had become emotionally distant. A few even believed he must have had painful experiences attached to birthdays. The truth was more layered than that. When Arman was younger, birthdays meant everything to him. He would wait up until midnight, phone in hand, heart beating slightly faster than usual. Each notification felt like validation. Each call felt like proof that he mattered. But he also remembered the silence. The people he hoped would remember sometimes didn't. The messages he expected never came, and the disappointment that followed was heavier than he ever admitted. It wasn't about gifts. It wasn't even about parties. It was about feeling seen. Over time, Arman realized something uncomfortable. He had unknowingly tied his sense of worth to one day on the calendar. If the day was loud, he felt important. If it was quiet, he felt forgotten. That emotional dependence slowly exhausted him. So one year, without announcing it to anyone, he decided to experiment. He would treat his birthday like any other Tuesday. He turned off notifications the night before. He didn't post hints. He didn't remind anyone. He woke up early, made his usual cup of tea, and sat near the window as sunlight filtered into his room. And something surprising happened. He felt calm. There was no emotional roller coaster, no countdown anxiety, no waiting for the world to confirm his value, just a steady, grounded feeling. That was the year Arman understood the difference between attention and peace. Attention is loud, peace is quiet. From that point on, birthdays stopped being emotional checkpoints for him. They became ordinary days, not because he rejected celebration, but because he refused to measure his importance by how loudly others celebrated him. Instead, he began asking himself different questions, not "who remembered me today," but "did I grow this year? Did I become kinder? Did I keep promises to myself?" Those questions felt heavier, but also more honest. Arman started creating private rituals instead of public ones. On his birthday morning, he would take a long walk alone. No music, no distractions, just reflection. He would think about the mistakes he made that year and the lessons they carried. He would acknowledge the fears he faced and the progress no one saw. Because growth, he realized, rarely looks like celebration. Sometimes it looks like surviving a difficult month. Sometimes it looks like walking away from something toxic. Sometimes it looks like forgiving yourself. One year, his closest friend forgot his birthday entirely. The next afternoon, the friend called in panic, apologizing repeatedly. "Yar, I can't believe I forgot. I'm the worst." Arman laughed softly. "You were there when I needed you in March," he replied. That mattered more, and he meant it. That was the shift. He no longer evaluated relationships by dates. He evaluated them by depth. Who shows up when you're struggling? Who listens when there's no celebration involved? Who stands beside you when there's nothing to post? Those things, to Arman, were real indicators of care. The rare mindset he developed wasn't indifference. It was emotional independence. He understood that if your happiness spikes only when the world applauds you, then silence will always feel like rejection. But if you build your self-worth internally, applause becomes optional. On his 25th birthday, instead of organizing a party, he bought himself a simple notebook. No one knew. No photos were taken. That notebook became his private space for setting intentions and tracking growth. In its pages, he wrote about fears he never shared publicly. He mapped out goals that had nothing to do with impressing anyone. He documented failures honestly, without filters. That quiet act did more for him than any cake ever could. Because while others were chasing validation for a day, Arman was building identity for a lifetime. People began noticing something different about him over the years. He wasn't shaken easily. He didn't overreact to forgotten messages. He didn't crumble when attention faded. He moved through life steadily. Birthdays became ordinary because he had learned to make ordinary days meaningful. He celebrated finishing books. He celebrated discipline. He celebrated moments of courage no one witnessed. And the irony, when you stop chasing attention, people often respect you more. There was a quiet confidence about Arman that didn't need announcements. He didn't need a stage to feel alive. He didn't need candles to remind him he existed. Existence itself was enough. That's what people misunderstand about those who treat birthdays like normal days. It's not sadness. It's not bitterness. It's not a lack of joy. It's the result of learning that worth is not seasonal. It doesn't arrive once a year. It doesn't disappear when forgotten. It's built daily through character, consistency, and quiet resilience. And once you realize that, you stop waiting for one day to feel special, because every day already is. Sana never hated birthdays. She just didn't worship them. In a world where people turned one day into an entire birthday week, or even a birthday month, Sana remained quietly unchanged when her date arrived. No dramatic countdown stories, no glittering photo shoots, no subtle hints dropped in conversations days before. When colleagues found out it was her birthday through an office record, they insisted on ordering cake. Someone dimmed the lights, a few clapped loudly. A short, cheerful song filled the room. Sana smiled warmly. She thanked everyone sincerely, but after 5 minutes she was back at her desk, finishing her work. One coworker, curious and slightly confused, later asked her, "Don't you feel like doing something bigger? It's your day." Sana paused before answering. "I feel grateful," she said softly, "but I don't need a stage to feel important." That sentence wasn't arrogance. It wasn't coldness. It was the product of years of reflection. Sana grew up in a modest home where celebrations were simple. There were no elaborate parties or expensive gifts. Sometimes her birthday meant her mother cooking her favorite dish. Sometimes it meant nothing more than a quiet "Alatum lamb" by Zindagi De and a warm hug. As a child, she used to compare herself to classmates who arrived at school with boxes of chocolates to distribute. She once asked her mother why they didn't celebrate like that. Her mother had smiled and said, "Beta, kashi sho kan si zayada zarori hai mesus kana." At the time, Sana didn't fully understand, but she does now. As she grew older, she noticed something about people around her. So many attached their emotional stability to annual milestones. If their birthday was celebrated loudly, they felt valued. If it was quiet, they questioned their relationships. She saw friendships strained because someone forgot to post a story. She saw partners argue over missed midnight wishes. She saw how quickly joy turned into silent resentment. And she asked herself a hard question. Why should my worth fluctuate because someone forgot a date? That question changed everything. Sana began separating attention from affection. Attention is visible. It's public, it's loud, affection is steady, it's consistent, it shows up in random Tuesday conversations and unexpected check-in messages. She started noticing who stood by her during stressful weeks, who remembered her fears, who asked about her goals. Those moments mattered more than candles on a cake. That's when she developed her rare mindset. She refused to let one day carry the responsibility of proving her importance. Instead of dramatic celebrations, she built quiet rituals. Every year on her birthday morning, she would wake up early and sit alone with her journal. She would write 3 things. What did I survive this year? What did I learn about myself? Where did I abandon myself? And how can I do better? No filters, no audience, just honesty. On her 27th birthday, she wrote about leaving a relationship that drained her. It wasn't dramatic. There were no public posts about choosing myself, but she knew how much strength it took. On her 28th, she wrote about forgiving her father for emotional distance she once resented. Not because he apologized, but because she didn't want to carry the weight anymore. On her 29th, she wrote about learning to say no without guilt. Those were her real milestones. She didn't need a decorated room to mark them. The freedom she found in this mindset was powerful. When someone forgot her birthday, she didn't spiral into overthinking. She didn't interpret it as betrayal. She simply understood that life is busy and real care isn't limited to calendar reminders. When promotions didn't come as expected, she didn't crumble. She didn't measure her progress by public acknowledgement. She measured it by internal growth. That emotional steadiness became her quiet superpower. People often described her as mature beyond her age. But maturity, she realized, is simply the ability to detach yourself, worth from external events. One year, her friends insisted she celebrate properly. They planned a surprise dinner. She appreciated the effort truly. She laughed, ate cake, took photos. But later that night, when she returned home, she did what she always did. She removed her makeup. She changed into comfortable clothes. She sat by her window with a cup of tea, and she asked herself, "Am I proud of the woman I'm becoming?" That question meant more to her than any candle. Because for Sana, birthdays weren't about proving she existed. They were about evaluating how she lived. There's a rare strength in not needing public validation. It doesn't mean you reject love. It means you don't depend on it to feel whole. Sana understood something many don't. If you need one day to feel special, you're ignoring the power of the other 3. 164. She found joy in ordinary mornings, in finishing difficult tasks, in keeping promises to herself, in choosing peace over drama. That consistency gave her confidence. While others experienced emotional highs and lows based on events, Sana lived in a steady rhythm. Birthdays became ordinary because her days were already meaningful. She didn't wait for applause to feel accomplished. She didn't wait for attention to feel loved. She didn't wait for a celebration to feel alive. And ironically, that made her presence stronger. There was something grounding about her, something calm. People trusted her because she wasn't chasing spotlight energy. She wasn't fragile in silence. She had built her identity internally. That's the rare mindset people often misunderstand. Treating birthdays like normal days doesn't mean you lack joy. It means you've learned that joy doesn't need scheduling. It means your value isn't event based. It means you've stopped outsourcing your importance to noise. For Sana, existence itself was enough reason to be grateful, not just once a year, but every morning she opened her eyes. And when you reach that level of emotional independence, you don't need a stage. You don't need fireworks. You don't even need candles, because you've already learned how to light yourself from within.